Hi, I'm Paul Brodie, back in the shop. Mitch behind the cameras, thanks for joining us. I've been working on the Excelsior while you're gone, and I'm going to give you a little slideshow and show you what's happening. Worked on the front suspension. It's leaf spring. There is no dampening. At the most, it might have an inch of travel, so not much at all, but we are talking 1919. This is the leaf spring parts that I was working with. It's spring steel, and it's been heat treated, and it didn't, and the pieces don't match. You can see over here, see how everything matches? And this is all out of shape. So what I had to do was to go to the arbor press, and I had to bend these, and they spring back quite a lot. I've got blocks like this. This is just 2x4 stuff, and this gets held in the ram of the arbor press, and I press down, and it depends where I put the spring, where it's going to bend and bend back. So anyway, that's what I did. I got the leaf springs all mounted. And then I worked on the suspension. I'll call this the upright, and this is the rocker here. What happens is this moves like that. That's where the suspension comes in, and the leaf spring moves up. So I'll give you a little slideshow on how that got machined. And then after that, we're going to work on the linkage. I'm going to show you how the linkage gets made. Well, it's CNC'd, but I have to bend this, and then it's got to be held. So I'll show you how I do that. And we're also going to work on the eccentric. That's partly how the power goes to the back wheel. And I have to put in a keyway. There's a broach, and the keyway goes in right there. So we'll do that later. Okay, so I'll give you a little slideshow now. Okay, on the uprights, I've got it held on the mill, and I've got a slotting saw, and that's how I make the slot. I basically take 3 cuts to make the slot the correct width. Here, it's my notes from 18 years ago in 2008. That tells me how I machined the rocker. It's a casting, and so you have to figure out how to hold it. So the first step is to put it in the mill. I got blocks of aluminum. It's 3/4 of an inch, and I hold it on either side of the rocker. And what I'm doing with the end mill is to face these 2 sides so that they are the right width, and they're also parallel to each other. That's important. So I've drilled the hole, and now I ream it 1/2 inch because that's where the spindle has to go through. And then also the reamer is a little bit small, so I end up using my honing machine. Okay, the next step is to hold the faces here in the mill, and then I also mill the sides of this here. This is where the axle goes through. It's a 7/16 axle, and it goes right through there. So here, I've got it held in the fixture. I got a special fixture I made up years ago. It holds the rocker, and it allows me to make the hole there. And that gets reamed as well. Yeah, you can see here, there's some smoke coming off the drill. And then on the hole where it goes into the upright, and that's the upright I was using the slotting saw for. I use the boring bar, and I take cuts of 10 thou, and I make it the right width. And I drill the hole and ream it. So that part there is basically done now. So on the front, it's the grease cup. So I put the fixture upright in the vise, and I mill off the top I drill the hole and I tap it 1/8 inch National pipe tap. And that holds in the grease cup. So here's the finished a pair. That's the raw casting. It doesn't have any flats or holes or anything. And you can see the grease cup on the end. And on the grease cup, it gets filled with grease, obviously. And then as you turn it every week or something when you're riding it, it puts a little bit of grease into the pivot. And you can see here, that is the pivot that attaches onto the fork. Okay, so here's the rocker, and here's the grease cap, and you can see how if I turn it and there's grease inside, it forces the grease into the pivot, which is this. This is the upright that goes over the rocker, and this is the axle going through the rocker. So that gives you a pretty good idea of Excelsior 1919 front suspension. And that's just that's showing how it gets bent in the arbor press. And you can see here, it's got quite a bend to it, doesn't it? And it springs back. That's what spring steel does. It really holds its shape well. Okay, so now we're going to work on the linkage, and we'll see how that works out. So this is part of the linkage. I had it CNC machined many, many years ago, and this is the brass fitting that it goes into. So I'm going to show you what happens here. See that? See how that fits in there? That's like a 1/4 inch ball, and that's 1/4 inch, so it fits really nicely. But I have to bend this, and I don't want to put any flats onto the ball because otherwise it won't turn properly. So I made up this many, many years ago, and I think that's how it works. There we go, like that. I think that's how I did it. And then I pull. Let's see what happens. Oops, oh, it pulled out. It's been a long time since I used this, so looks like maybe I need something in here. Aha. Oh yeah, that seems to be working. Okay, so that's how I bend this part. Okay, so that makes a nice bend. And what we're going to do now is to go off to the lathe. And this goes into the lathe, into the chuck. And then I use this as a holder. And I put that in like that. I put a little bit of oil in there, so it's got a little bit of lubricant. And then this gets held on the tool post, and the lathe turns, and it presses that down. Can you see how this is pressed down? And this can't fall out. And it's got good movement. There's no slop. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to go to the lathe and see if this works. Haven't done this in a very long time. A little bit of oil there. That goes in like that. I've got the lathe on a fairly slow speed, I'll show you. It's not going that fast. Maybe a couple hundred RPM. I need to feel when it starts to get tight. That's the trick. So I can wiggle it. Okay. You can feel it getting a little tight. So there's no slop at all, but I can move it freely. So that's good. That's a success. So I take it off. So there, that's how I do that. And that's part of the linkage on 1919 Excelsior. Let's go back to the bench. We're going to work on the broaching now. Okay, so these are the, I guess you call them side plates or something like that. They go into the eccentric on the bike. And we have to cut a keyway. So this is part of the broaching tool. So what I do is I put it in here and it lines up the holes. So then I have to hold this somehow so that they're both in line with each other. So that's where the bronze comes in and the hose clamp. So I put the bronze around here, put the hose clamp on there, and then I can broach it and I can drill the two holes, and then everything is perfectly in alignment. There we go. So I put this around here like that. Slip my hose clamp over. Give it a tighten. I normally use one of those, what's it called, a nut driver, and I can't find the right one. So that's basically what I want. And you line it up so it's where you want it to be. And then I think the first time you don't use any shim. It's been a while. Okay, so that's when it starts to hit. I need a little bit of cutting oil there, and then I have to add a shim. So I've got two shims here. So that's where the shims go, like that. And then you broach it once again. This is a broach, it's high-speed steel. It's good. Okay, so here it is in the arbor press. And you can see it's taking a little bit of pressure. So this is the first cut. Okay. The first one has gone through. So now we add a spacer. There's the spacer. And we'll put a little bit of cutting fluid on there. I'll try again. I remember from previously, this is not always the easiest thing to do because it wants to grab sometimes. Ooh. Okay, so this is 35. So we'll put in the 50 like that. And we'll take another cut. There, you can see how it's cutting. It's cutting a keyway. Okay. Yeah, see all the chips there? Can you see how? 1, 2, 3. Bunch of chips. That's how it cuts. There we go. Okay, so what I think I have to do now is to put in both of these at the same time. Okay, so I think we have a keyway. Take out the shims. Not sure what that's called, but maybe someone knows. So there we have, look at that. That's our keyway for the key. Mission done. I would say that we have had a bit of success today. We got a keyway. We worked on the linkage. So life is good. Thanks for watching. Mitch and I like coffees, you know that. It really helps our channel. Like, subscribe, tell your friends. See you next week.